When most people think about prayer in the Bible, they usually think about comfort, hope, or encouragement. But there is one prayer in Scripture that many people either overlook or quietly move past because of how uncomfortable it feels. It is found in Psalm 109, and when you read it carefully, it raises important questions about pain, justice, betrayal, and how honest people can be before God. Listen to some of these words. May his days be few. May another take his office. May his children be fatherless and his wife a widow. May no one extend kindness to him. These words come from Psalm 109, verses 8 to 13. At first reading, many people feel surprised. Some feel uncomfortable. Others wonder why words this severe would appear in Scripture at all. After all, this is not simply a complaint. It is a prayer. These are words directed toward God. And that leads us to an important question. Why would Scripture preserve a prayer like this? Part of the answer may be found in understanding the situation behind it. Psalm 109 is traditionally connected with David. And throughout David's life, we see repeated experiences of betrayal, false accusations, conflict, and deep personal pain. When people experience betrayal, emotions are rarely neat or organized. They are often complicated, and Scripture does not hide that reality. In fact, another psalm gives us insight into this kind of pain. Psalm 55 says, "If an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it, but it is you, my companion, my close friend." Psalm 55, 12-14 reminds us that betrayal from someone close often creates the deepest wounds. So perhaps Psalm 109 is not simply about anger. Perhaps it is also about grief. But there is something else worth noticing. David brings these emotions to God rather than acting on them himself. That distinction matters. Romans 12:19 says, "Do not take revenge. Leave room for God's wrath." This does not remove the difficulty of Psalm 109, but it may help explain what is happening. Instead of taking justice into his own hands, David places his pain before God. And that brings us to another interesting connection. Psalm 109 appears again later in Scripture. In Acts chapter 1, after the betrayal of Judas, the early believers quote from this psalm. Acts 1:20 says, "May another take his office." This connection makes Psalm 109 even more significant. Because now themes of betrayal, justice, and consequences appear again in a completely different moment of biblical history. So what makes this prayer difficult for modern readers? Perhaps it is because we prefer faith to look calm and composed at all times. But the Bible often presents people honestly. We see fear, confusion, disappointment, anger, sorrow. Consider Job. Consider David. Consider the prophets. Again and again, Scripture shows people bringing difficult emotions before God, not because every emotion is correct, but because honesty is part of faith. This naturally raises another question. Should Christians pray prayers like Psalm 109 today? Jesus teaches, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Matthew 5:44 gives believers an important framework. Mercy matters. Forgiveness matters. Love matters. At the same time, Scripture also recognizes human pain. Psalm 109 may not be encouraging hatred. It may be showing what it looks like when wounded people bring their deepest frustrations before God instead of carrying them alone. And perhaps that is why this prayer remains in Scripture, not because it is easy, not because it is comfortable, but because it is honest. Many people reach seasons of disappointment, betrayal, or injustice. And passages like this remind us that God is not only present during moments of peace, He is also present during moments of struggle. So I'd like to ask you, when you first read Psalm 109, what stood out to you most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring difficult or overlooked passages in Scripture, there are many more conversations worth having together.